Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Payments Association webinar, How the Abuse of Company House has Facilitated Financial Crime and the Likely Reforms. My name is Sofia De Francesco, and I'm the Head of Production at the Payments Association. So before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's webinar. You will have the opportunity to submit text question to today's speakers by typing your question into the Q&A tab of the control panel. Please make sure you use the Q&A tab and not the chat box. You may send your question at any time during the session. We will address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's session. You may ask this question anonymously if you do not want your name attached to your question. If you have any logistical queries or technical issues, feel free to send a message through the chat box to Emily Bird from the Payments Association, who will be on hand to answer any queries. Without further ado, I would now like to introduce you to Jane G. She's the lead for Project Financial Crime at the Payments Association. She will be chairing the session today. Over to you, Jane.
Thank you very much, Sophia. I'd like to welcome everybody to this Payments Association webinar. As Sophia said, I am fortunate enough to be the lead for Project Financial Crime at the Payments Association, and I have a great team of people who help on that project. I'm also delighted to be here because we are going to hear from Graham Barrow and Ray Blake of the Dark Money Files, and I expect many of you will be familiar with their podcasts. They managed to make their subjects entertaining and quite good fun to listen to, even though often the content will be very serious and even alarming on occasions. And I won't be long before I hand over to them because I know that they have got an exciting agenda for us. Could I have the first slide, please, Emily? I'm not going to read this out to you, but there is a quote which is mentioned at the beginning of the white paper, which is rather wonderful, from 1856. Companies House was actually running before that. It was in the 1840s it was formed, but it does talk about trying to make sure that, you know, we shouldn't stop 99 companies getting formed just because one of them might be bad. The best thing to do is to let it be formed and then to save them from the wreck in which they might be involved. So even then, they obviously recognize that companies would be abused. Next slide, please, Emily. So again, I'm putting these slides. I put these slides together so that you would have some takeaways if you want them, and I know that they will be distributed afterwards. Should you want them. Not all of today's presentation can be distributed because some of it is a live presentation. But these slides are just to show you the context of Companies House. It's been a long time that we've had it. There are certain requirements. Companies' names have to be unique. Companies mustn't use certain names. I was interested to see that the list of proposed companies' names which have been rejected included Fancy a Bomb Limited, and some of the others rather controversial. But also, you have to get approval from the Secretary of State if you want to use certain sensitive words, and that there's a link there to the sensitive words. Some of them are obvious, like bank, or words association, things like that. There are over 4 million companies registered, normally about 500,000 every year, but then you have to see how many are dissolved or taken away. Next slide, please, Emily. So just to remember, and I do think this is important because I'm sure that the government has emphasized many times how important companies are. They are, in many ways, the backbone of the economy, and they're very keen to see that companies can be formed easily. And the register, as you can see, is accessed over 10 billion times every year. It's a really important foundation of the UK's business environment. So the government doesn't want us to do anything with Companies House which will stifle innovation and entrepreneurial activity, and that's very important. However, the paper does recognise that now there are so many companies which are abused, and that abuse does undermine the standing of the UK as a good place to do business. So just to remind you, those two functions of Companies House, one is to facilitate the creation of limited companies, and the other one, which those of us who work in anti-financial crime are very familiar with, is to provide free information so that we can check when we are doing KYC. Next slide, please, Emily. So just to say how many companies were formed, that's the 2021 figure, and their value, the value of companies which they're saying from 0 to 9 employees is estimated at £9.6 billion. There's some interesting research on how significant the formation of companies are and how important they are to the economy. Then the context, which I'm going to hand over in a moment to Graham and Ray to talk about, is the misuse of companies. The register isn't necessarily accurate, and there are challenges to safeguarding personal data, and a number of stakeholders have drawn attention to the opportunity of Companies House to play a bigger role in tackling economic crime. Okay, so I'm now delighted to be able to hand over to Ray and Graham.
Well, thank you, Jane.
Thanks, Jane. How lovely to be with you this afternoon. Graham, we find ourselves talking about Companies House quite a lot at the moment, don't we?
Well, we do, Ray, and I think probably Companies House should take some of the credit for that, and I do mean credit, because they've worked pretty hard, haven't they, particularly over the last 12 months, to make that data accessible in not just easy ways, but interesting and quite clever ways that allow us and others to do much more advanced searching, and partly what we're going to do today, isn't it?
Yeah, we're gonna share some of those techniques with you and show you some of the facilities that already exist in Companies House searching that lots of people don't know about. So that'll be good. What about some background first, Graham?
Well, I think that'd be a good idea, Ray. And you know, I think we have a slide we prepared earlier.
We've got a slide, haven't we? There you go.
Good.
So, I mean, here's some numbers which may surprise you, may alarm you in one or two cases. So between 3,000 and 3,500 new companies get incorporated in the UK every day. Now, incorporated in the UK is potentially a misleading phrase, isn't it, Graham?
Well, I mean, I think legally the answer to that is that's absolutely true. If we understand that incorporation really just means that you legally reside in the UK, the company legally resides. We'll come back to that, because that's a big difference between operates in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely right. Doesn't mean it has to pay tax in the UK or have officers in the UK or be doing anything at all.
Or actually be real people.
Well, there's that, isn't there? But again, that's 16,000 new incorporations in the UK going onto the UK register every week. 65,000 a month, and it would be good to think that somebody's looking at all of these and making sure that there is as little, to coin a phrase, extravagance or roguery going on as we might wish, harkening back to the 1856 statement of the Board of Trade. But that is a staggering number on an annual basis.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it, Ray, that back in 1844, as Jane just alluded, when it started, it cost you £5.
Yeah, and how much does it cost you now, Graham?
£12.
£12, and it's worth noting that in the UK you had to pay for a dog license if you wanted to keep a pet dog in your house. You don't have to anywhere in the UK, except for reasons which are completely lost on me, in Northern Ireland. And in Northern Ireland, the current cost of a dog license is £12.50.
There you go. So form a company and have the company own the dog.
Yeah, and of course, I'm not aware of specific tax or legal advantages you get by owning a dog in Northern Ireland, but there are very significant ones associated with owning a UK limited liability company.
Well, there are. And one of the interesting things about the 1844 charter that incorporated Companies House was it actually laid down within the charter that Companies House could only charge the cost of incorporation. So there's no, and of course, as we've digitized and had this frictionless ability to incorporate, the cost has come down, which is very nice if you want to form a company, but doesn't allow any manoeuvring for doing anything else other than sticking it on the register.
And it hasn't been unnoticed, has it, that the UK is a very, very easy place and cheap place to set up a business that you can then go and operate anywhere else in the world.
I was actually sitting in a room yesterday morning with a lady called Ilse Snottina, who's the head of the FIU in Latvia. And she said, I know we get a bad rep, but she said, do you know how many of your companies have given us that bad rep? Because our register is stuffed full of them and none of them have got any connection to your lot.
Yeah, meanwhile, we go around waving our FATF report very much like a crucifix, don't we?
we do, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into this then, shall we?
Shall we? Shall we ask Emily to stop sharing and we will...
And I'll share a
you take a deep breath. And,
screen. How would that be?
Yeah, and so what you're about to see to all our wonderful participants is a screen probably lots of you have seen before, which is the main search screen at Companies House, where I think we've just found out 1 billion searches a year are made. So a few other people are at it.
Yeah, they can't all be us, Graham, surely.
Can't be. Somebody said to me the other day about, do you remember the times when it was £1 a go? Because once upon it used to be £1 to download a PDF. So I made the point that if that was the case, I did a quick tot up of the amount of Companies House PDFs we've got on it's about 50,000 quid. Right. So or it would have been zero because we wouldn't have paid £1 a time. So one of the consequences of free access is the data may be rubbish, but at least it's free rubbish.
That's a deeply insightful comment, Graham.
I think you'd enjoy that.
Absolutely.
But they are quite modest, aren't they, Companies House? Because they have this splendid new facility and it's not easy to see.
No, it's buried away right down here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some of you may have noticed this little link appeared very, very quietly.
Before you move on, though, because there's another really modest one at the top most people miss as well, which is the one just under what do you think of Companies House?
That one you mean?
Yeah.
Companies House does not verify the accuracy of the information filed. Well, that's a very, very important disclaimer, isn't it?
We are just about to show how true that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shall we embark on our journey, Ray?
Let's go.
Okie doke.
So here's advanced company search. And in the old days, all you had was that search box, wasn't it, Graham? And
it absolutely was.
In many ways, a bit like the Google search bar. Only not quite as well sometimes. But now what we've got is more akin to the power of Google Advanced Search.
Absolutely, although there is still one search that you can only do on the old search function, and it's an important one. So at some point we'll come back to it. But just don't let me forget that because that's important. Do you want to just open up all those boxes, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I'm going to hand over to you to start talking. I'll probably weigh in a bit, but I'm going to hand over to you to start talking about those boxes.
Yeah, fine. So, I mean, there's very little here that you couldn't intuit anyway, but let me walk through them briefly. We kick off with company name, and you've got quite extensive functionality here. You can enter a full company name or a partial company name. And you can exclude certain terms as well. So you can play with that and find and find some real use in that, I think. Again, either a full or partial office address allows you to filter the results that come out of this. Incorporation dates allows you to search in a range by giving a start date and an end date. You do need a trailing 0 on single digit days and months, which is frustrating, but there you go. You can search companies having different statuses as well. We're not going to go into that in too much detail, but you can filter to just active companies, for instance, or just dissolved ones. Do you want to briefly explain to us the usefulness of SIC codes, Graham?
So, and I've got to be honest, up until the advanced search function came in, I think this was probably slightly lost on me as well. But a SIC is a standard industry classification code, and if you work over in the States, it's called a NAICS over there. NAIC. It's the same, but more or less the same thing. And
Mm.
basically, when you create a legal entity, one of the things you're obliged to do is to give an indication of the type of business that your new company is going to do. There are a few, and we'll come back to this as well, which are a bit wishy-washy. There are three initials, Ray, aren't there, which are always, you sigh when you see those three initials. There you are, you did.
Yeah, no, go on. I'll do the sighing. You explain.
Okay, the three initials are NEC, which is not the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham.
It isn't, sadly.
It is not elsewhere classified, and it's one of those catch-all industry classification codes that says very little, but is used quite a lot.
It's equivalent to ticking the box that says other.
Other,
really?
Exactly.
So SIC codes are useful, and I think they'll probably make a bit of a showing later on during some of our walkthroughs as well.
Definitely.
Actually, you can then look at different company types, and it may not have registered before, but you can find an awful lot of different types of entity when you do your search on Companies House. Usually, you'll be looking for UK registered limited companies or partnerships or various combinations of those key terms, but you can also find a number of other types of society and company there as well.
You can.
Subtypes, yeah. You can also search for dissolutions within a date range as well.
Yeah, could be handy.
Yeah, absolutely. And these settings are persistent as well. So when you do a search and it throws up the results, those search fields are still populated with what filled them. So you can go and make small amendments without having to start all over again, which is quite handy.
You can. So I thought we might start off with an amusing one. So I'm just going to throw in, Ray, in the company names, because this is a misspelling I saw the other week, and it's accountants, but it ends ANCE and not ANTS. And
like
then
that.
just exactly, and that's it. So just to be clear, when Ray hits, as he's going to in a minute, the enter, it's going to search the entire 4.5 million or more companies in Companies House, and it will extract every single company that's ever been registered that has that typo in it.
Yep, that's how search works.
Away you go.
There you go. There are 7 of them.
Okay, do you want to just have a look at those? So Geldonia Court, Newbury House, Newbury House, Newbury House, Newbury House, Geldonia Court, Geldonia Court.
So split between the 2 addresses then.
Do you want to have a look at the dates?
They were all registered this month.
8th of May, 8th of May, 8th of May, 8th of May, 9th of May, 8th of May, 9th of May. Now, I mean, people say I've got a suspicious mind, but Ray, do you think that could be a coincidence?
I think that would be stretching credulity somewhat.
Would it be even more interesting to find out that St Augustine's Road runs off of Kimbolton Road in Bedford, and the house on the corner of Kimbolton Road is Newbury House, and the very first block of flats on St Augustine's Road is actually Geldonia Court. So they are.
So these offices are next door neighbours.
They are next door neighbours. So what are the chances that in 2 days, the only 7 appearances of that spelling mistake were from a variety of flats next door to each other in Bedford? I'm going to say
interesting.
As close to 0 as 0.
Yeah, very much so.
But that's, that's kind of amusing, not amusing, isn't it? Right? Because it's like, okay, but why have these companies been incorporated then? And that's an open question. The other thing we might notice is, did you notice the SIC codes?
There are 3 of them, and if we click into one of these, we can see exactly what those are.
Okay. Do you want to have I mean, I can't remember. Do you want to see who actually incorporated this?
Let's have a look.
Okay. That's interesting. One of the things that people may not know is so far this year, since the 1st of January, something approaching 13,000 companies have been incorporated in the UK by Romanians who live in England.
Purportedly.
Well, yes, because I had the total incorporations been at the same ratio of Romanians to others, there would have been about 2.3 million companies incorporated this year. So it's a highly an outlier. So that's another Romanian. Any bets on Raoul's? So
yeah,
I mean, we could go on, but I think here we have two possibilities. That these two blocks of flats in Bedford are entirely occupied by Romanians, which is possible, who all decided in the space of 2 days to start a company, all of which have the same 3 zip codes. It's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. But that's an interesting outcome from just putting a single word into the search function and following.
Of course, they each followed a reasonably similar naming convention as well for their firms and made the same misspelling.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to busk this, but bear with me. Right, the postcode is MK40. So should we go back to the search and just pick up that postcode, or just shove in? I mean, to the main search, yeah. So
the whole postcode, or just
no, just the MK40. Let's just do a test. I don't know what this is going to come out with, but let's have a go. Let's take accountants out because we know how many there are.
Yeah.
Let's chuck in one of the SIC codes just for interest. So 69, whichever one, 69201. I don't mind. And let's run this from 1st of April. Yeah. So do from the 1st of April.
Yeah, could do, couldn't we?
Yeah.
So from 01.
Yep.
04.
Yep.
2022.
See what happens. So this is going to tell us all the companies.
13 results in that relatively small area.
Oh.
Now. I think that's one that we didn't see before, but it's also at Newbury House.
Yep.
With the same 3 SIC codes.
Yep.
Cyprian's Accountancy Limited.
And Mireille's. Oh no, we've had
same SIC codes.
Maria's. Thomas.
Same again. It's filled in those gaps in the apartment numbers that otherwise would have been unaccounted.
Well, no, I mean, I'm intrigued. Can we go back another month? I have no idea what's going to come up. I mean, I'm not sure I was quite ready for that. Will it become?
No, it's still only 13. Should I go back to the start of the year?
Well, why not? But I mean, that's actually already telling us something, isn't it? Because that shows it's a very narrow date. So, okay. So that's really interesting. So they started up late in April. And it looks like every flat in the entire blocks have registered a company.
All offering accountancy and related services.
Kind of, I can get that.
all owned by distinctly different Romanians by the looks of things.
Yep.
I mean, let's look at Andy. That's the only ostensibly non.
Yeah, it could be Andreu, couldn't it? So I'm going to go out on a limb here.
No, Romanian.
Yeah. How strange. So, I mean, that's the start of an investigation, isn't it, really? But I mean, what we now have is a situation where, I mean, but I think it's an important point, isn't it, Ray? Because we've identified that red flag because we've looked at just more than one company. Had you just looked at one of those companies, it wouldn't be obvious at first sight that there was a problem, would it?
Nope, not at all.
But the minute you look at the context in which that company was incorporated, and advanced search allows you to do that, a very different picture emerges. Shall we have a go at today, Ray?
Yeah, let's look at today. Let's clear all the filters, shall we?
One of the things I always worry about when we do these is people think, oh, you've come along with a finely, I mean, we could have curated that, couldn't we? We could have just
19.
You've got 09.
Oh, that's not going to work, is it? 19. No. 05 2022.
So should we just see first of all how many companies today have been incorporated?
Let's have a look. Now I need to clear. Oh no, it's the SIC code. There you go.
Yes, lovely. So now,
That's better. That's more like it, isn't it?
yeah.
2,148 results.
So that's since, well, technically since a minute past midnight, but they tend not really to start up until about 7 o'clock. You'll get a handful overnight. But, so since 7 o'clock this morning, where are we now? 2:30. So what, 7.5 hours, 2,000 odd companies. Now, how do you go through that many companies? Well, the answer is you can't easily, but there are some interesting filters that we could apply.
There are. Is it worth pointing out at this point that the new functionality means I can download all of
Oh,
those
away you go. Right,
file?
away you go.
Would you like me to do that?
Why not? Yeah, let's show how that
Why
works.
don't we do that? So I'm downloading that file, which I can then go and open in Excel. I might have to reshare that. So
I was going to say, but bear in mind you're sharing the browser and not the screen.
So what I can now do is go and share the spreadsheet, which looks like this.
Yeah, and because it is actually in a CSV rather than a direct Excel format, but I mean it's very easy to resave it as an XLS if you want to. Well, you can do some interesting things just with this. One of the things I would do is
an interesting one, Graham.
Private limited by guarantee. Yeah. One of the things I might do at this stage is if you go to column K, which is the addresses, if you just highlight the whole column, and on the conditional formatting, you can just ask it to identify duplicates. On the cell rules, that's you've got it right down the very bottom, it says duplicate values.
Okay, so straight away that's highlighting, straight away in red, that's highlighting a number of addresses that appear more than once.
And if you now stop highlighting column K, just have it just generally available, and then do a right click in any of the red ones, right, and filter by cell color, which I think is about halfway down the filter. Yeah. So filter by cell color. It will then bring up all of them. And it might be helpful at this point if you can just sort them top to bottom.
Yeah.
Because that starts.
So 2 on Kings Avenue. Oh, quite a lot in Lyric Square, look. And that's an interesting.
That's called, it's a company called Get Ground Limited, and they sell buy-to-let investment opportunities packaged within limited companies.
There you go.
That shows how sad I am, doesn't it?
That's also quite a well-known address, isn't it? 124 City Road.
It is not. I mean, if you go down, I can guarantee that when we get to 71 to 75 Shelton Street, there will be dozens. Well,
Wenlock Road.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Old Gloucester. No, sadly, I know most of these addresses. Yeah, there we go. And this will go on forever.
It does go on forever as well.
Yeah.
106 of those so far today.
Yeah. There are so there's somewhere closer to 100,000 companies now registered to that address. But anyway, so
if this were your full-time job to look into each of these every day, you'd need a significant team of people to do that, wouldn't you?
Yes. So we've been asked, is that a brass plaque address? And it is. It's actually the address of a company called First Formations, who are a company incorporation agent, registered one. So and very popular they are. They offer some slightly troubling packages from my point of view. They have a thing called a non-resident package, which means that you can incorporate a company and you're given an automatic business banking with an electronic money institution as part of that package. If you go to look up the companies on that address, you will find a very, very large proportion of non-resident incorporations there. Anyway, I think should we go back to the search page?
Yeah, of course.
Giving people a hint of
I think
what can be done.
Let me just reshare that one.
Thank you, Ray.
Ray and Graham, there is a question about what approach should a company take when this is identified. I'm not quite sure, because that question's been around for a while. I mean, I suppose all of us think, well, there isn't a hard and fast rule about this,
No.
because one needs to recognise that there are some red flags coming up, and you can't say, well, that's such a significant red flag automatically, perhaps. But well, what is your view on generally speaking, you know, don't you have to delve a bit deeper, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, Ray, do you want to?
Yeah, no, ultimately, if it, I mean, it depends what your job is. If you are at a financial institution and you're looking at onboarding one of these firms, then there are a few basic checks that aren't usually part of of most firms' CDD policies that are worth doing. So look at what else was going on in that area in the month that it was incorporated. Look at what else the named officers or PSC of that company are involved in. Look at the SIC codes, look at the filings, see if, you know, they kind of make sense, or if they set off alarm bells. One of the things that we often do is look at the next 5 and the preceding 5 filings on the day that the incorporation went in, to see what they were filed alongside. Use your imagination somewhat and look at the risk of onboarding something that may be bigger than the firm itself, that maybe touches into a network that you would want to know about.
I guess
thank you.
I was going to say the challenge, though, of course, is very, very few financial institutions do anything other than look at the very specific data provided by that company. So it is astonishing. I think, as we're about to show you, by doing a little bit of additional work, how easy it is to determine this not is all as it seems.
Now, interestingly, when we sort of address this question, or when we have addressed this question in the past, one of the caveats that we've given is we wouldn't expect many of these companies that are involved in extravagance or roguery to be presenting themselves for UK-based banking relationships. We're more likely to see them in the correspondent banking files because they will bank overseas. But actually, one of the trends that we've seen this year is we think we're identifying a large number of incorporations that are priming themselves for UK-based fraud and other criminality. So it does become a lot more relevant now, I think.
Yeah, and I think I just saw a question that was asking about AI and machine learning being used to interrogate Companies House and be used for bad actors, and that's not just a good idea, but algorithmically derived company names are, I mean, actually they're quite easy to. Shall we show an example, Ray? So what I'm going to do, so certain standard industry SIC codes are just very common for those with potentially suspicious activity, and one of the most common is 47910. And that is sale of goods via the internet or mail order, because it's beautifully vague and doesn't require premises or all the rest of it. So, Ray, should we just start off by
127 of those today?
And that will probably be often retail property is the most common, but this will be one of the 5 most common SIC codes on any particular day. That's still quite a lot, isn't it? 127. So,
yeah,
so you're going to have to
pass 2.
Well, yeah, exactly. So you're going to have to bear with me a little bit on the next bit, because I want to add in. So let's just add in Somerset as an address. So we're going to look at all of the companies in Somerset, and there's a reason I'm saying that, that have registered today with that SIC code. How many have we got, Ray?
We've got 7 of them, but they're an interesting looking lot.
Well, so the first thing you'd say is they look like they might have things in common other than the SIC code. Now, is that just me, or is that a bit of a weird address?
Flat number 18 North 6th Street, room 23. That is a weird address, isn't it?
Yeah. Can we just grab the postcode and see
The full one.
whether, yeah, and just do a search Google for it. Oh, yeah. We got a map.
It looks like a residential street to me.
It does. Can we go to the map and have a look? Ah, that's come to images. Can
Yeah, it
you
has,
go to
hasn't it?
maps?
Let's go
Yeah.
back.
Go to Google Maps. Lovely. Okay, well, it says Salisbury Road. It doesn't say anything about North Street. And it's right in the middle of Salisbury Road. So I can't actually see that postcode relates to anything remotely resembling North Street. So on that basis, can we go back to the search?
Yeah, that is odd.
And just put the postcode in rather than Somerset. So we'll start restricting the search to that postcode. And then, I don't know, where should we go back to? 1st of April, something like that, and see, or 1st of May. I mean, 1st of May. Let's see
1st of May.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
16.
Okay, right. Oh.
They're all
I
looking
know.
quite
Hold on. Hang on.
familiar.
Go back a second, because I just saw one that says
Oh, for goodness sake.
Pennsylvania, Somerset. Well, is that where William Penn came from? I don't know. Anyway, but that says Salisbury Road, which is interesting because I think that is the right address.
Yeah.
So, okay, so can you just pick up Salisbury Road and add it to our search? And then we'll go back another month and see if it picks up anything else.
Do you want me to leave the postcode?
Yeah, I think because there'll be more than one Salisbury Road in the country that's had.
Yeah, fair point.
Rickmansworth. Oh, of course he did. Actually, thank you, Clifford. I knew that because that Penn there's a pub called the Royal Standard of England in Penn, around there, which I used to go to many years ago.
Good
So,
pub
thank
knowledge, mate.
Oh, and there's a William Penn Leisure Centre. See, I knew the pub, you knew the leisure centre. Probably sells everything you need to know about me. See, now that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, apart from anything else, some of those company names look ridiculous. Well, more than ridiculous. They look programmatic, don't they?
They do.
We've dropped down to 6 interestingly, but by limited to Salisbury Road.
5 of them say Pennsylvania.
That can't be a coincidence, can it?
Well, you wouldn't have thought so, would you?
So if we go to the top one,
and
just click into it, Mo King Limited, I think what we're going to find is that this is has been incorporated by somebody from China. And indeed
from the UK, but Chinese.
Yeah. Now, the reason I know this is because we as a company worked with the Mail on Sunday a few months ago, because there are actually about 700 companies registered to that address in Salisbury Road, which is actually a Chinese restaurant. It doesn't have, if I'm honest, 727 flats above it. I don't know if while I'm chatting, do you fancy just seeing if you can call up a street view for Salisbury Road, right? Because I think you can probably see it. It was there. It's on the other side of the. That's not number 4. If you go back, I think if you go back to the previous screen, I think what you can see on the map is it's actually got number 4. It's a Canton Chef.
There.
Yeah. So if you now do a street view from there. Lovely. Drop the little man.
Oh, there he is.
So I think we can agree that there isn't 727 flats above that shop, are there?
Lots of boxes. Maybe they should have gone with box numbers.
Excellent. So we did this story, and there were 700 and odd companies registered to Chinese individuals registered to that address. Now, there's a reason I say that, which is I'm going to be a pain now, Ray, because I want you to go back to today's results. Sorry.
Okay. All of today's results.
Just those 7 that came from the postcode and today.
Okay.
And of course, Salisbury Road, you can leave the postcode in, but obviously Salisbury Road will have to come out because they're saying it's not Salisbury Road anymore. So let's have a look at the first one, which is, I think, excuse my French, as the saying goes, Julien Nathaniel Lalouf Limited. So, yeah,
that's easy for you to say, Graham.
I practiced, right? So if we go to the people, now it's a really important thing which I want to. So if you click on Mr. Alouf's name, it will take you to his directors page, and it will tell you Mr. Alouf. I think it's just a great name for a Frenchman. Sorry.
It's almost a national cliche, isn't it?
I really don't mean that, but it's just too good a pun to miss. Now, the thing about Companies House is you would look at that and say, okay, he's only been director of one company. But if you pick his name up and put it back in the search box, you'll actually find.
Oh, look.
Well, 2, and the reason I think it's 2 is because the born December 1984 would be a heck of a coincidence. So there's another one at Noble House in Bournemouth. Shall we have a look at that? I've known a teacher or 2 who should have had one of those.
Confirmation statement overdue. Naughty.
Yeah.
Dormant company.
2 officers.
He looks like him, doesn't it? Together with a Chinese person in China.
Oh. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Given that the postcode is the postcode for a street that's been associated with a lot of Chinese companies. Shall we have a look at another one?
They were only involved for 3 days.
Yes. Yeah, we'll come back to that thought. Have a look at another one.
I must just tell you, Graham, that somebody has pointed out that there is a Pennsylvania which is 34 miles from Weston-super-Mare.
Well, that's lovely.
It's lovely, yes. They were just
Splendid.
embellishing the address a little bit.
It's not a legitimate part of that address, however.
No.
However,
postcode.
but have you just seen what Dusty Relic has put up? Thank you.
Oh,
the
Noble
Bournemouth
House.
address is a Chinese restaurant in Bournemouth.
Yeah, splendid.
So, Valeria Vukadin is French, although it's not obvious from the name. Shall we do the same again? If you can click on the name, pick up the name.
1 appointment, it says there.
Now, bearing in mind these are today's, I need to, because sometimes you think, oh, this is just ridiculous. And if you go to the officers tab, because sometimes it doesn't bring everything up.
Yeah,
Okay, so
look like just the one.
All right, so try the next one then. Cyril Molent.
Cyril Moll.
Cyril Mole, maybe.
Maybe.
And it might, of course, have checked, because I did have a quick look before we did this, and it might have changed. Oh, no, there we are.
No, he's got a couple. He's in Manchester too.
Flat 55C Platt Court. Away you go. We know what to do now. Glow Commerce
Limited.
It's dissolved. It wasn't around very long. Okay, there's a pattern emerging, isn't there? I think. And the first director was what, 10 days?
10 days, yeah.
Yeah.
Round about the same time as the other incorporation.
It's very close, isn't it? How close is it? I can't.
It's within a month.
Within a month.
Yeah.
So there's a and we could go on, but I think there's a point it just becomes a bit repetitive. Now,
Graham and Ray, somebody's asking what official ID and other documents need to be presented to register with Companies House?
No, none at all. Well, no, that's not quite true. A picture of the Queen.
or an electronic one.
Indeed.
So actually, in all seriousness, all you need to present is the application, isn't it? There aren't any ID.
You need to put a name on it, but it doesn't need to be your name.
No.
I think Ray, if you want to go back to the main search page,
yeah, well done.
I'll have a go at Darth Vader. It's always good fun. And you'll probably need to go to
limited, but if we go to officers,
are we going to get a Oh no, it's not coming up. Well, I know one that does
Okay.
work. We do know because we've done this before, which is our friend Mr. Presley, isn't it?
Is who, sorry?
Mr. Presley.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's going to come up as Elvis Aaron, but it'll come up. It'll come up. There you go.
Yeah.
In fact,
0 appointments now, though.
well, yeah, but he's been a good few.
Yeah.
Elvis Aaron Presley Brown. I mean, obviously somebody might have changed their name by deed poll, but nevertheless, you could.
Oh, I remember TCB Global. That's come up in reports previously.
It certainly has. Yes.
That's an interesting question, Graham, that's just come up. Why has a dormant company got an active status in Companies House?
Yes, because dormant has a different meaning, so or active has a different meaning. So active simply means it is not in any other state, i.e., dissolved or involuntary liquidation. So it simply means it is a current company, but not active in trading terms. There's another one, and I'm not quite sure the difference. So 74999 is a non-trading company. 99999 is a dormant company. One of the weird things is that very few financial institutions, I think, bother to check the SIC codes when they're reviewing transactional activity. And I think it would be relevant, wouldn't it, Ray?
Oh, very, very much so. Also, the nature of dormant companies, some of which, as we know, are involved in quite public multi-million-dollar transactions.
Well, I tell you what, let's have a go at something. No,
Okay.
I haven't planned this, but let's have a go. Go back to the advanced search. And let's just put in, I don't know, the first of, clear everything out. And let's put in the 1st of January 2000. I have no idea what's going to happen there. And the 31st of January 2000. So there's really quite a limited, that's a month. And then just put the SIC code for 99999. So 5 nines. Just see.
244 of those.
And now I've reduced it and just tick the active companies.
$112.
I mean, there's a bit of me, and I genuinely have never done that before, but there's a bit of me that says, why for 22 years have these companies remained dormant? Now, I can see why. I wish I had limited. So it might be that somebody's incorporated these to sell, and they think there is some value in the name, and so they're allowing it to stay on the register. So you're allowed to stay on the register dormant, and actually you can have a bank account, providing all you do is maintain the cost of keeping the company active, which is your annual filing fee, and if you happen to pay an accountant to produce dormant accounts. But I mean, that first one, 31 days limited. I mean, that looks like a private address. I've no idea what it is, but I mean, it's just, I mean, there are costs associated with keeping a company on the register for 22 years. Someone asked about SIC codes, and I think actually the easiest way, if you scroll back down to where you were, is there's a very handy link. And there you go. And I mean, you can do some bizarre stuff. Do you remember we did one, we were looking for uranium mining? Do you remember? So
Mining of uranium and thorium ores, do you mean, Graham?
Yeah. So why not? Let's have a go. Let's have a go. Let's pick that SIC code up and see in the last, 12 months or 24 months, how many companies have registered that mine uranium and thorium.
While you're doing that, there were a couple of questions. You can get the SIC codes, can't you, listed, Graham? From
yeah, you can click on that link, but there is also a PDF.
There is a PDF, yeah.
There's some handy PDFs actually, Jane, because the other one, which is very handy, is that all of the different types of companies have a different prefix. So they actually have, they're called unified company codes, or so I can't remember, but that's useful to know because lots of different types of companies have different. So like a limited liability partnership is prefixed OC, letter OC. That's worth knowing too.
Ooh, now here's a very interesting thing. So we've got 4 hits on that SIC code of incorporations this year, and every one of them is
Ooh.
one of a number of SIC codes.
It
That
really
always
is.
fascinates me.
And that's, yeah, and there is coincident in some of those SIC codes as well.
Very much so.
And it has to be said that they're all at addresses that we know.
Extraction of crude petroleum, extraction of
No, the last one, bro, the last one.
management activities. Can you spot the odd one out there? I think I can. Let's see who's doing that. Oh, a secretary. How old-fashioned.
I know this person. I know this. I genuinely, if you click on his name, I think you'll find some quite interesting companies he's incorporated. Now stop, Ray, stop there. Click on that company.
This one.
Yep. And now look at the filing history and particularly the statement of capital.
Ah, it's that one, isn't it? Yeah.
It's 670.
How much paid up capital is involved in this firm?
670 trillion, 661 billion, 999 million, 999,334 pounds.
And how does that compare with, I don't know, let's say global GDP for last year?
It's 10 times last year's global GDP. Right.
Well, he's done well for himself, hasn't he, really?
But I genuinely didn't know. He's also probably related to the Obiang family, which is not so good because they have a bit of a rep. But I honestly didn't know that was going to come up.
Didn't know that was going to come up. It's amazing what you can stumble on, isn't it?
It's just, go on.
Let's have a look at one in a different address.
Guys, can I just say, somebody has said, does Companies House ever sort of stop and go through any of, I mean,
no.
It's got no statutory powers to.
No.
It doesn't have a mandate. It basically it operates a directory.
Yeah.
It's not a regulator.
No, and one of the reforms is going to be that any company will be able to report anomalies and report suspicion eventually.
Yeah. I mean, the challenge is it's probably, it could even actually only be us, Jane, that's you, me, Ray, and a few people around us who truly understand the scale of this.
Yes.
Actually, I was going to say, Ray, if you went back to the other one, because did you notice the one that you were just on, which was, that also had an extremely interesting, so not the Antari Corp.
Yeah, it was, I think it was Oil Planet, wasn't it? It had, no, it wasn't.
No, it was Antari Corp. And that also had a very weird fourth, sixth.
Yeah, it had fund management as well, didn't it, or something? Yeah,
activities
of investment trusts.
So just out of interest, who was that? Who? Well, there you go. So that reminds me of somebody called Daniela Brazzi. So actually, that's a good one to do, Ray. Should we just show just how vulnerable people's intellectual property is?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
So should we go? We can stay here. Doesn't matter. You can do the search in either place. But let's go for the BBC. So any company that has BBC registered this year, shall we just do that? Oh, well, some of those will be the BBC, and there's 187 of them. So I'd limit it by just this year.
Yeah.
That'll do us.
BBC Gold Limited.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
71 to 75 Shelton Street.
What is that well-known location?
BBC going to Shelton Street. Let's have a
know.
look at this.
Okay, that doesn't look like broad
granting, not elsewhere classified. Seems odd, doesn't it?
Dr. Daniela Brazzi.
Daniela Brazzi.
How much capital has this one got, Ray? Oh, it's just a mere 5 billion.
Just 5 billion euros.
I just saw one I've never seen before, actually. Can you go back to the search?
Yeah, of course. Oh, just closed it. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. We'll have to reopen it again then.
BBC.
Actually, no, do BBC Cult, just because that was the one
Yeah,
I saw.
because that was the name I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, or Cults, was it? Could have been Cults, actually.
Oh, it's all right. Let's go back and do it the other way. BBC.
Do Cults.
I'll just do this
Oh,
year.
okay. Oh, no, I've just seen something about what's. So somebody's asked about Mux. Oh, right. Now we'll show you about Mux. So Clifford, hold that thought and we'll show you all about Mux in a second. For the benefit of the rest of it, that's a mini umbrella company.
Mm.
All right, so this is 7 Penshurst Road. Oh, I don't know this one, right? Well, Alison McArdle. Interesting. But the point here is that Companies House does not do any element of checking on intellectual property either.
That's
So
an
we have
interesting
seen.
occupation, isn't it?
I saw one yesterday that just said straw man. That's very honest.
For those not familiar with this terminology, nominee director means it's only my name on the paperwork. It's not actually mine.
And actually, I again only discovered recently, you are allowed to be on Companies House a nominee director as long as you say I'm a nominee director. So
Fair enough.
Yes. So, I mean, we've seen people incorporate, using, names of extremely well-known banks, for example. There is no intellectual capital or property checks either. Now, Ray, Clifford has asked about companies that incorporate via Facebook and then transfer at scale to the Philippines. So should we show some examples of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll need to go back to advanced search, and we'll stick with today, just to prove we're not making it up. So if we can go just to today's dates, I'm just trying to think the best one. We'll try 82110 to begin with as a SIC code.
Say again?
82110?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's brilliant. So let me just explain what we're going to see. And actually, should we have a chat about a mini umbrella company? So a mini umbrella company is where a resourcing company is given a contract to provide numbers of people as self-employed contractors. Normally, they can go in through what's known as an umbrella company, which takes care of all of their tax and national insurance, what have you. Now, a mini umbrella company are those that are artificially created to take advantage of two specific government benefits, one which is flat rate VAT, and the other one of which is they get national insurance rebates. Now, if the sole purpose of the company is to qualify for those, but actually you're providing people as part of a bigger contract, HMRC have made it very, very clear that that is fraud and it is not right. Now, there are a number, but the one we're going to show you is by far the biggest. So before we click on them, I'll explain that they have three particular company naming conventions, and then I'm going to let Ray choose. So the three conventions are this. It's either two initials and a surname, the name
Limited, HS Reed Limited,
or the name of a small town or village somewhere in the UK.
Sutton Courtenay.
Or three words thrown together at random to make it look like a load of old rubbish.
2.0 administration.
Now that isn't, but I think
that's a pucker one, isn't it?
I think pretty much everyone on this page, and I reckon that's a Scottish company at the bottom. So Ray, I'm going to let you pick any one of those, but once you click on it, we'll stop and I'll make some more predictions.
Let's do that one.
Fine.
FC Pritchard.
So when you go to the People tab in a second, I'm going to predict that the occupation of the director is going to be consultant.
Consultant, yeah. There you go.
I'm now going to predict that when you click on her name, there will be more than one company. And if it's more than 6, hold on, stop. If it's more than 6,
which it is,
the first 2 will be active and the remaining 6 will be, they will have resigned.
Okay, active. Oh, I've got another active.
No, resigned.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the company status, aren't I?
No, their status.
Yeah,
So-
resigned.
So I'm now going to make a prediction for one of the resigned ones. You can choose whichever one you like, but when you click on it, it will, and you can click on it, but when you go to the people tab, the person taking over will be Filipino.
Okay. Yeah.
If you go to the filing tab, you'll find that they probably changed the address of the company and changed the director and PSC at the same time.
Close, same month.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but it's been backdated. So oh yeah, that's fine. So but the appointments were. So I'll make one more prediction, which is if you go and pick up the new PSC's surname. No, actually no. Click on the new director, and that will be a sole directorship. But
It is.
if you pick up just their surname and paste it into the search box, we'll do a reverse search and go to the officer tab and then pick up any other Benevente that you like. I don't really mind. No, not that, sorry. Of all the ones you picked on, that's a bad one. Preferably one that's still active. So Jose Miguel, for example.
Yeah.
And then that's interesting. No, that's so there are some Filipinos who are actually directors of companies that are not MUCs, but most of them will be MUCs. So go on, have a go at that one. Probably not. So this is what happens when you do something. It does.
Name though.
It is in the Philippines. Yeah. I was actually looking for an address that I know. So, but it doesn't matter. I think we've probably proved the point. Now, there are about 60,000 of those on Companies House, all of which follow that same pattern, which is somebody in the UK, real person, in batches of 6 will incorporate. And Ray, while I'm talking to this, if you want to go and do another one, and please do, in batches of 6 will become directors and PSCs of companies. They will be a consultant, occasionally administrator, but normally consultant. They will have multiple directorships. This one, they'll all be active because there's only 3. And at some point, and they're pretty much one a day over a period of a week. And then at some point, they will then be transferred out to Filipinos, and they are paid for this. The other thing I'd say is my criticism is not with them. Mostly these are highly vulnerable people who are very low income, and the 70 odd quid they get paid a company actually is exceptionally important to them, as are the people in the Philippines who are by and large not well off. I mean, the problem is with the company that organises this, and the best estimate is somewhere between 400 million and £1 billion a year is being deprived from the HMRC and the Treasury through this action. And the really annoying thing is there are more mini umbrella company networks than this one. It's just this is the easiest one to demonstrate. Jane, I'm going to reckon we're going to have some questions.
Yeah, I think we have got some questions. So one of the questions that somebody's asked, and we'll talk about it in a bit, we'll do, is when is this all going to get fixed, obviously.
Yeah.
David Pellid just mentioned that he was talking to Lee Robbins at Companies House, and they don't know because the legislation has to be passed. Yep. And there's lots of resourcing issues. If you're, this change that we're going to see to Companies House is so utterly fundamental. It's a complete change in culture, a change in almost, entirely their operational base. Yeah. So, we can't expect it to happen quickly. It could have been done quite some time ago. Many of us feel, but yep. That's another story.
Yeah. Somebody asked about number of companies you can be a director of. I can probably show you one. There's a guy called, his name is Mark Feldman. So I don't know if you that, Ray. With a C. Sorry, I should have made that clear. Now, this is one of the really annoying things about Companies Houses, its ability to not to aggregate data, because you can see, I mean,
170 there.
Got another click, because actually often it's more than that, and I don't know why. Yeah.
Yeah, weird.
So Mr. Feldman, and that's his address, I need to choose my words quite carefully now, is a company and corporation agent who has a website on which he sells companies. Ray, if you want, do you want to do a Google search for Mr. Feldman's name? So that way it's not
the
me.
full name, all three?
Yeah, go with a full name, and we might want to go to, once we get there, to go to the news. And now just cut it down to Mark Feldman. I think that'll be a bit easier. And if you can just add in PPE. Well, where's that gone? Has he had that removed?
Was he? Has he used European legislation to wipe himself out?
I don't know. He was in a very interesting article in The Guardian.
Some results may have been removed under data protection law in Europe. I think he's whitewashed that.
I would be surprised. Maybe I'm just not doing a very good job of finding the right. Oh no, do Mark Feldman Leeds. That would be better. There you go. Top one I'll do.
Mark Feldman is among those registering companies with names such as Coronavirus Compensation Limited.
Yeah. Now, I'm not for a minute suggesting that Mr. Feldman is doing anything criminal. Just to be, it's on a recording, so I want to be absolutely clear about that. But he has,
as a convicted fraudster, though.
He is, and
by the Guardian, I hasten to add,
and I'm sure that is true. But it doesn't mean that his current activity is in any way criminal. However, there is nothing to stop somebody who has been convicted for fraud to incorporate companies here in the UK, and to do so at prodigious scales, as you've just seen, because there are more than 4,000 or more companies, of which he is a director. I've just noticed Clifford's comment. I have to drop for another call, but thank you. If it wasn't so serious, it'd be amusing.
Yeah.
I think that's a very common response.
And Jasper has asked, asking, for financial institutions, is there any value in using companies' data for their onboarding, or is the data quality too low?
Well, interesting, because the UK regulations, like the European regulations, actually prohibit you from using solely the information that's in the beneficial ownership registry to determine beneficial ownership of your corporate clients. You can use it to confirm information that you get elsewhere, but it can't be your sole source of resolving the beneficial ownership. Now that's in the law, but it's not being practiced by a number of firms, to my knowledge.
Can I? Sorry, go on, carry on, Ray. No, I was just going to give a concrete example, which actually James already alluded to, which is this. There's only so much I can tell you for reasons you're about to understand. But this year we have a company that monitors this in real time. So this year we have identified a network of companies that are being incorporated daily still now. It's about, my latest spreadsheet, it's about 1,600 companies that have been incorporated, and they're using empty retail premises, and they're getting them from websites. So they've downloaded a list of empty retail premises, and they are registering those companies to those empty retail premises. But they've also, and I think this is probably on the dark web, they have bought several files of people's data that has been hacked and made available for sale illegally. So they're incorporating companies in the UK to real addresses which are empty, with real people's details, at their real addresses with their real dates of birth. And our best guess is they're then using those companies to open up business banking to get often what would be an automatic overdraft and clear it out before anyone's discovered that those people aren't real, or those people don't know that they're the directors and PSCs and the address is an empty shop. And because there is no verification, that's the point. Because there is zero verification at Companies House, it is easy. What's even more distressing is when you find that out, you have to get a court order to remove your details as a shareholder or person with significant control. I will let that thought mellow with you.
Which surprised the judge who was asked to provide such an order.
We have seen the first, as a consequence of the work we've been doing, not just us, but by the by, the company, one of the companies whose data was hacked, obviously realised it had, because their staff kept coming and saying, "I've been made a director of a company. I don't know anything about this." So when it's happened 300 or 400 times to your staff, you have a couple of problems. One is you have to make a disclosure to the Information Security Commissioner. And two, you have to remedy that situation, which is you have to go to court and have their names removed. Very expensive. The judge said, and this was the first 140 or 150, "I have never in my life seen so many at one go." Sorry, Judge, there's more to come. I mean, and of course, these people could actually now sue the companies for breaching their personal data security. So it's a huge issue.
Mm.
Dan is making the point about the amount of COVID fraud being staggering, and reforming Companies House should be done as soon as possible, as we are ever more digital and the international criminal gangs keep stealing from the Treasury. But I mean, they keep stealing from all of us, actually. We're paying the price of this criminal activity, aren't we? Because it's taxpayers' money that's
and the mood in government has changed quite significantly in the last 3 months, to a point where I think we're now happy we will see some significant developments very soon. We were despairing, weren't we, Graham, earlier this year?
I mean, it's one of the downsides of doing what we do is on a daily basis. I mean, honestly, Ray, what percentage of the actual suspicious activity have we managed to show today?
Drop in the ocean.
1-2%? I mean, I would say 20% of all company and corporations have no legitimate business whatsoever, no commercial rationale. They are solely containers for criminality,
for extravagance or roguery.
Well, 20% of 750,000. That's 150,000 companies a year. Our estimate is are being set up for non-commercial and potentially criminal activity.
But the Exchequer's getting 12 quid out of each of those.
It's good, isn't it?
Well, that'll pay for all the money that's going to be needed to unravel the mess, won't it? Yes.
I mean, when Graham and I incorporated our company some years ago, we didn't balk at the thought of paying £12, but I don't think we would have reconsidered if it had been £50 or £100.
No, but I'll tell you what we did do, Ray. We put an awful lot of effort into coming up with what we wanted to call our company.
Which is a good point, isn't it? One of the things that you'll see if you spend very long at Companies House is some companies with the most weird and wonderful names, and that is a huge clue when you think about it, because if you set up a company like we did, we wanted the company to say something about us and to be associated with positive values and in what we did. So the name was descriptive. Other people set up companies with similarly descriptive names, like, I don't know, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah. I wonder what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Far Eastern Clothing Imports Limited, or whatever.
Poundland, although some
Poundland. Others that the name is more relevant. WH Smith and Sons Limited, for instance, the name of a founder or the name of a place where a particular business was founded. This is common, but what, Graham, could be behind a business name that means absolutely nothing?
The fact that they have no intention of trading it, I would have said.
Well, that would be
Right.
one thing, wouldn't it? And if you
Oh.
couple that with absolutely zero web presence as well, particularly if they purport to be internet retailers.
Yeah.
um,
I know Jane was rather impressed with the phrase we have coined for these companies.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
I am.
And
Tell
it
us about it,
was
Jane.
Burner companies.
burner
love-
companies.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's absolutely brilliant. David Pellage has answered one of the questions by somebody asked, why has it taken Companies House and the government so long to finally take action? David has suggested it was cost. I would like to say that I don't actually agree with that, in that I think that although the government is somewhat concerned about changing the way in which companies can be formed, I think what's interesting is that I'll just put my video on. I think what's interesting is that it's not a question of it costing a lot to do this. It's really because the cost will be recouped ultimately, because they will put up the cost of I'm sure they are going to put up the cost of forming a company, but it isn't just cost. It's, I have to say, it's a lot to do with political will. This has been on the agenda for a long time. You might remember David Cameron was doing quite a lot on bribery and corruption at one point. So the politics of this have waxed and waned quite a lot. And the reason why we are where we are now, where we're doing something, thank goodness, is largely to do with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Because the economic crime bill the first bill has been passed. It was passed on the 15th of March. And that was designed to address three relatively, not minor points. One of those was sanctions, because they needed to be able to impose sanctions more easily and quickly on Russian connected entities. But we've had this problem for a long time, and some of us have been pushing for reform, in long since. And I can see David saying political will strongly linked to the lost opportunity cost. The fact is that all countries seem to compete for dirty money in some ways. Particularly, as we know, British overseas territories, because this sort of money has been the backbone of some of their economies, hasn't it, guys?
I think there is also an element of ignorance. And I say this, I was asked to tag along about 3 weeks ago. The Foreign Affairs Select Committee went on a bus tour of London with the Kleptocrat Tour people. And I said, do you want to tag along and do a bit on Companies House? Well, of course, I said yes, because why wouldn't I? So obviously, the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, sadly lacking Liam Byrne because he'd just been suspended for bullying, but the rest of them were on this bus. So I thought, well, that's a good opportunity. And I don't mean this critically, but what transpired was they really didn't have any great understanding of Companies House and the problems that go with it. They did not know that 3,000 to 3,500 companies a day were being put on the register. They did not know that 5% this year of every single company incorporated had a Romanian director. 5%. They did not know that last year 60,000 companies were registered in the UK by Chinese individuals who live in China. So maybe we've got some blame here. Maybe we're not doing a good enough job of educating them. Or maybe because we live in this world, we know so much about it that these politicians, to be fair to them, have a massive range of things they need to know about. So I think, it is incumbent on us at every opportunity to make sure that education process happens.
And I need to answer a question that Adrian asked about why didn't bounce back loans do even basic searches to weed out invalid companies. Well, you guys can say more, but because the government guaranteed those loans and they went through the British Business Bank, the banks themselves didn't feel it was necessary to do very thorough KYC on bounce back loans. And as a result, they didn't, for example, even take out the companies that had quite clearly been formed in order to claim those loans.
After the announcement.
Yes, I was going to say, after the announcement was made, there were lots of companies, people piled in. You could see it happening on Companies House in real time. And this is, again, why real-time data is so important if you are trying to stop bad actors. What I think Graham and Ray have demonstrated to us very well is that actually we shouldn't be doing these things after the event. We should be doing them at the time, because we could take so much action that stopped bad actors getting into the system, rather than allowing them in and suggesting that you do transaction monitoring or something else as a financial institution in order to make sure that they are identified. They should be. You can see now that you can identify them on day one.
I've worked in financial crime for a number of years, and there are two things that have virtually not changed at all in the last 10, 15 years or so. One of those is the oft-quoted statistic that we only catch about 1% of money laundered, and no one has seen fit to revise that estimate or be more optimistic about it. That's one thing. And the second thing is that the focus remains resolutely on detection of financial crime, not on its prevention. And that is deeply frustrating after all these years, when we can do so much more to prevent it, to protect the UK, not only from the social effects of criminality, but also from the financial and reputational costs of criminality as a nation.
And well, it comes no surprise, I totally agree with that. And I'll throw one other thing into the mix, which I hope we've kind of addressed today, which is, ever since I've been involved in the same arena, which is about the same length of time as Ray, risk has always been assessed as data points on individual customers, and it's the wrong thing. Risk is never a data point, it is always a network. We now have technologies that are way better than human beings at identifying risk within a network. I mean, it was fundamentally one of the things we wanted to show you today, which is if you only look at a company, you are never going to recognize the risk. So that paradigm shift from risk as a data point to risk as a network is the only way I think we will prevent these people having access to the system. Because no criminal who wants to really be a criminal ever thought, I'm going to incorporate a company to further my criminality, ever. Just never. It's always companies, and the more the merrier, because that's your safety net.
I have got a few slides that I'd just like to show.
Yes,
Emily,
if you'll forgive me, I have to drop off because I have to get to another meeting. So, I thank you so much, and it's been an absolute pleasure being with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Thank you. And if there are further questions at the end, if we have time, then I'm happy to take those or take them away, as the case may be. Lots of people asking questions. So Emily, if you don't mind, thank you. Just putting up those last few. So as I mentioned, we have got the Economic Crime Transparency and Enforcement Act, which is already in force. And one of the key measures that brought in was to do with Companies House and maintaining a new register of overseas companies which own UK property. That register, I don't think, has been actually formally announced as being in existence yet. But just to note that overseas entities got quite a wide definition, and it has to be a legal entity, it has to be a body corporate. And registered overseas entity is an overseas entity, the name of which appears on the Companies House, on the register of those entities. So you're going to see that new register introduced. We are going to get a second economic crime bill, which was announced in the Queen's speech. That quote is directly from the Queen's speech.
Jane, that extension to the register and overseas entities is something that I was talking to Companies House about this morning. They're testing that functionality now.
Okay, lovely. I mean, I thought they were, because I knew that one of the senior people at Companies House had been very busy doing that. I mean, a lot of these things have been thrust upon Companies House, essentially, rather than, the government has made decisions and then said, right, we're chucking this over to you, and you've got to try and, make this register.
They're trying to front run the reforms because they are so keen to do it. They are straining at the leash now that they're about to get powers to do what they've wanted to do for a long time. Yeah,
I was going to say, Companies House are very keen. Sorry, Emily, could you do the next slide, please? So I just wanted to emphasize that obviously there is a white paper that the government published back in February, which is a white paper on the corporate transparency and register reform. And we know, because we've been consulted, we were consulted since 2019, they started the consultation on Companies House reforms. Now we've got a version of what we think will be the final reforms. They've been accelerated again because of the current crisis in Ukraine. They're going to have this very significant impact on Companies House. And the government's saying we want to see Companies House play an expanded role. So instead of being this passive recipient of data, it's going to be a more active gatekeeper over company creation and the custodian of more reliable data. And then I've listed some of the reforms that are going to happen, and you should do your own research on this, because it is, if you're in this field, it's important. They're going to have an identity verification service. They're developing that now, so that will be a service where they do identify and ID and verify the identity of directors who are filing information at Companies House. They're also going to do that for PSCs and for the person who actually files the information at Companies House. So that's important. Next slide, please, Emily. So again, we're not going to have corporate directors being permitted anymore, unless this exception applies, unless all the directors of that corporate director are natural persons, and those persons have had their identity verified. Again, the corporate entity can only act as a corporate director if it's registered in the UK. They've got slightly different rules for LLPs. Companies House are going to get many increased powers. They're going to be able to query information submitted to them before it's put on the register or post-registration. And it's going to apply to information that's already currently on the register. So it's quite unusual. A discretionary power is to be exercised on a risk-based approach. So they won't check all information, but if they've got some reason to query it, then they will, if it's fraudulent, suspicious. And I think if they talk to Graham and Ray, they may find that there's a lot more information that's suspicious, even if they think on the face of it, it isn't, from the information we've had today. And then there's another couple of things, which is shareholder information is going to be published where shareholders hold at least 5%, and that's for traded companies. And there's going to be a one-off full shareholder list. Again, financial information, they're getting quite savvy about this because additional validation checks will be on financial information. The information has got to be coherent and consistent with accounts submitted to the other relevant government agencies. And they're going to stop some of the changes. I'm just to confirm, I can see a question. These notes will be sent to you, and I'm sure that we're quite happy to take further questions if people want to, if they are directed to the Payments Association. I think the last slide, if you could put that up, and then I'm going to let, thank you. This was just to say to you that some people don't think that the reforms go far enough, and that all parliamentary group has said, we think that there are still reforms that need to be made. In particular, there should be a corporate criminal liability. It should be a lot easier to hold companies to account for activity. And when we're hoping that there will be this failure to prevent type offence, which we've already got in the Bribery Act and the Criminal Finances Act. So lots of things to take in, and we are going to see in due course what changes are made and when they're made. I'm sorry, we don't know when the changes will be made. I noticed that the impact assessment does cover a period of 10 years. I sincerely hope that we're going to get these reforms in this year, but this is going to be a major change at Companies House. So I'd like to say thank you very much to Ray and Graham again. I think that was a fascinating expose of the advanced search function at Companies House, and I'd like to hand over to Sophia to end this session.
Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Graham, that left us earlier. And of course, thank you to all of the attendees for asking all of the questions and for the great interaction in the chat box. Just to confirm, you will shortly be receiving a survey on the webinar, and we would appreciate if you could complete this and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view the recording of today's webinar. Once again, thank you all of our speaker, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. If you have any question, please contact emily.bird@thepaymentsassociation.org. On behalf of the Payments Association and our speaker, thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of the day. Bye.